CGTN, China Global Television Network. Live from London, this is Global Business.
Hello, welcome to the programme. I'm Jamie Owen.
And I'm Robin Dwyer. Our top stories.
China is such an engine of growth for the world economy that having it open up again is a good thing.
We're in Davos talking supply chains and the global economy with the head of the World Trade Organization.
Our other headlines, Google's parent company Alphabet is to cut 12,000 jobs days after Microsoft wielded the axe with a similar number of layoffs.
Western defence ministers meet with Germany under pressure to send tanks to Ukraine. President Zelensky says it's time to make hard decisions.
Not just Kung Fu, Shaolin centres in Europe get in shape for the Chinese New Year.
And whatever happened to the sky at night? Why seeing stars is becoming more of a rarity around the world.
China's opening up after coronavirus lockdowns is being welcomed at the World Economic Forum in Davos as a major boost to global growth.
But there are also warnings that geopolitical divisions could dampen any economic revival. Well, our correspondent Juliet Mann is in Davos. So, Juliet, you sat down with the head of the World Trade Organization today. What did she say?
Well, she wanted to know what had happened to everybody, because you can really tell that this is the final day of the World Economic Forum. The organisers are packing things up. Everyone's closing up their studios. It's that you can definitely get a seat in the media centre now. You know, all the delegates are disappearing down the mountain, safe in the knowledge that the economy is a mess. They're saying that 2023 is the year of inflation, but there were some optimistic notes as well. Some economic leaders had some leaders massaged their economic outlooks and said, you know, even though we've got these headwinds, even though we've got these risks ahead, there are things that we can be enthusiastic about. Optimistic, for example, that energy supply levels in Europe seem to be holding up. Optimistic that China and the United States sat down face to face and they're having negotiations in person. Optimistic that China is opening up. And as you mentioned, we spoke to the head of the WTO, the Director General, Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, and she said diversifying supply chains is going to be the right way to stoke economic growth. Take a listen.
We can't say we're out of the pandemic completely, but of course we are glad that things seem to be getting better. And I think with that, the issues with supply chains have been improving. You know, ports that were shut have opened. Shanghai was shut for a period of time, but that opened some time back. And, you know, the logistics of supply chains, I think, has undergone quite a lot of work. Digitization has really helped. So it's not that we're out of the woods, but I think we are in a better place. Freight rates have come down, and that's one indication. Of course, it's also because consumer demand is down, but at least freight rates are coming back to what they were before. So supply chains are unwinding, but there's a bigger issue, I think, with supply chains in general. During the pandemic and the war in Ukraine, we've seen that there are vulnerabilities on these supply chains. Perhaps there's a concentration of manufacturing of certain products in certain parts of the world. So what is being talked about and was talked about in Davos is how to build resilience. And I'll give you an example. Pharmaceuticals. The African continent imports 90% of its pharmaceuticals and 99% of vaccines. That leaves the continent vulnerable to external actors, should they need. So the issue is, in those circumstances, should we think about decentralizing some of the manufacturing of pharmaceuticals to places like Africa, for instance? 10 countries export 80% of the vaccines in the world. So there's a great concentration. So to diversify supply chains, what we're advocating is that we should try to use the diversification as an opportunity to include countries and regions that were not included in the first wave of globalization, and we're calling it re-globalization.
And speaking of opening up and the opportunities that are out there, what do you think China widening its doors to the outside world by reopening its economy is going to do for trade in 2023?
Well, I think China opening up is a net positive for the outside. First of all, the consumer demand within China. First of all, the manufacturing getting back to normal. So I think for the world economy, it's a good thing. Of course, we have to worry about what happens with the spread of COVID during the new year and so on, and what impact that will have. But I think all in all, it's positive. China is such an engine of growth for the world economy that having it open up again is a good thing.
So re-globalisation, resilience, these are the buzzwords that we've been hearing in Davos around economic growth for 2023. But there have been differing views on what form that growth is going to take. ECB President Christine Lagarde said, you know what, 2022 is a really weird one, with growth slowing in nearly every single economy. So China, in her words, waking up, has a lot of benefits, but there could be consequences too for prices. Take a listen.
What impact it will have on all of us in terms of added demand addressed to the global economy is something that will be a positive for China, most likely, will be a positive for the rest of the world, but will have inflationary pressure on many of us, simply because the level of energy that was consumed by China last year was certainly less than what they will consume this year. The amount of LNG that they will be buying from the rest of the world will be higher than what we have seen. And there is not so much spare capacity in terms of both oil and gas, so that we will have complete elasticity in there. So there will be constraints, there will be more inflationary pressure coming out of that added demand in commodities and energy in particular.
Well, China opening up also means that travel is back. And it's a really important travel time right now in China, of course, because it's the busiest time around Lunar New Year, when millions of people in China will be travelling long distances to meet their families. Here in Davos earlier in the week, I spoke to Jane Sun, who's the CEO of China's biggest travel company, Trip.com. And she talked to me about her outlook for the travel year ahead.
On the demand side, they are ready. On the supply side, because some of the airports and airlines let go lots of employees during the COVID period, now they need to revamp. So they are hiring back their workers, retrain them, and get ready for the pickup from the China market.
Are they ready for it, or are they playing catch-up? And if so, what impact is that going to have on your business?
I think for the first half of the year of 2023, all the business partners will pick up lots of speed to make sure the capacity is recovered. We hope during the second half of this year, everything will be back to normal.
So, with more people booking trips and travelling abroad from China, what impact will that have on the global economy? Talk us through the value of that tourism.
Many areas in the world is taking on the risk for a recession. So when we bring customers from China to the rest of the world, hopefully that will bring strong buying power for local economy and also create job opportunities for the destination countries. So it's very positive for the world economy.
You know, it's minus 12 degrees here, so I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Jamie Owen for reminding me to pack my thermals for this trip. I'd also like to thank all of the team here in Davos and back in London, but who work really hard behind the scenes to help us bring you all of this coverage. And if there's anything that you've missed, and a lot more, you can check it all out on all of our CGTN digital channels. And on Saturday at 16:30 GMT, we have a special Davos edition of the agenda. So I hope you'll be tuning into that. Now, you know, Davos has never been about decisions, but it has been about conversations. And you know what? We've really had a lot of conversations here this week. Back to you, Robin and Jamie.
Our correspondent, Juliet, thank you. Our correspondent, Juliet Mann in Davos.
Now the rest of the day's news, and inflation in Japan has hit 4% for the first time since 1981, increasing pressure on the Bank of Japan to increase its near-zero interest rate policy. The country's inflation is still lower than other G7 countries, but energy prices are pushing up the cost of living in the world's third largest economy. Earlier this week, the Bank of Japan defied market expectations and maintained ultra-low interest rates, including a bond yield cap it was struggling to defend.
Phone company T-Mobile says it's investigating a data breach involving 37 million accounts. The company said basic customer details were obtained, but that no sensitive or financial data was compromised. It's the second major data breach at the company in 2 years.
Chinese travel agents will resume selling group tours and package holidays from the beginning of next month. They'll be able to offer their products to Chinese tourists again as part of a pilot scheme after a 3-year coronavirus shutdown. The scheme will include a limited number of destinations, including Thailand, Egypt and Switzerland.
A federal judge in the United States has ordered former President Donald Trump and his attorneys to pay around $1 million in fines for suing former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton over claims the 2016 election was rigged. The same judge who threw out Trump's lawsuit last year said he had a pattern of misusing the courts to further his political agenda.
Google's parent company Alphabet is to cut 12,000 jobs to focus more heavily on artificial intelligence. This just days after Microsoft announced a similar number of layoffs. Let's talk to our correspondent John Terrace, watching events for us in New York. John, so thousands more tech jobs going in the same week.
Yes, I know. And this is at Google. The parent company is called Alphabet. I don't know about you, but I always forget, it always slips my mind, that Google also owns what in many ways is the most popular and successful part of its business, which is YouTube. So it's Google and YouTube owned by Alphabet. And they are laying off, apparently, 12,000 of their workforce globally. Now, in October of last year, 2022, their profits were down about 27%, and that, in the main, is because of a decline in digital advertising. These companies rely very, very heavily on that for their revenue streams. Also today in America, we're talking about more tech jobs going, this time at Capital One, which is, I suppose it would be bank number 5, bank number 6, something like that. Tech jobs there going. And also at a furniture company that will sell you furniture, but only online, which is called Wayfair. More tech jobs going there as well. And the problem is, the issue is that the tech companies assumed, and I think we're probably all a bit guilty of this here on Wall Street, we all assumed that the good times were going to go rolling on, and that the growth in these businesses would continue beyond the pandemic era. Well, once the PAMI was out of the way, I'm afraid people just don't need this stuff in the way that they needed it during the pandemic in 2020. It's as simple as that. So they were wrong. And you've seen this with other tech companies. Microsoft, only this week, I think it was on Monday, wasn't it, or Tuesday, announcing they're getting rid of 5% of their global workforce, which is 11,000 people. Amazon began laying off people by email. Can you believe it? I read today on Wednesday about 8,000 jobs going there. And in the crypto field, Coinbase and Crypto.com laying off 20%. Salesforce, PayPal, they're all doing it. But here's the thing that is a bit weird about all of this. There will still be about 100,000 more jobs employed in these tech companies than there were before COVID in 2019. And don't feel too sorry for these people. I mean, yes, feel sorry that they're losing their jobs, of course, but they will probably get jobs elsewhere. It's just that they won't get jobs in maybe the prestigious names that we've been talking about. All of this, Jamie, will please the Federal Reserve that is looking for companies to downsize in order to calm 40-year high inflation. It doesn't seem to be happening, though. The weekly jobless number yesterday was at a staggering low of 190,000, where 214,000 had been expected. And that's why the markets are all down, because they worry very much that the Federal Reserve is going to go on raising interest rates deep into 2023 when they actually don't need to now, and in so doing force a recession. Jamie?
And John, it's that time of the month when another crypto company goes bang. What's the story?
Sorry, I shouldn't laugh. I shouldn't laugh. I mean, this is a big story. And I tell you, while we have a few minutes, let me tell you something. This whole crypto thing is as big as Bernie Madoff, okay, in 2008, 2009. It really is. The difference, and the reason you're not hearing much about it, when Madoff went down, he took loads of grandmas and grandparents and aunties and uncles and family members with him. This guy over at FTX, the collapsed cryptocurrency exchange, he's taken down people who should have known better, basically. They should have known better. And for that reason, and the fact that Bankman-Fried over at FTX was handing out money to politicians and media organizations left and right, means the coverage is very, very limited and very different to Bernie Madoff. Anyway, today, a company called Genesis has filed for bankruptcy protection. This is part of Barry Silbert's DCG group. It's a platform. It helps you manage your crypto money one way or another. Filing for bankruptcy protection. Here's the thing. They say they were exposed to $200 million over at FTX, the collapsed exchange led by Sam Bankman-Fried, and that they owe $900 million to their clients. The companies that were most associated with them include Circle, which has a stable coin called USDC. A stable coin is a more stable version of cryptocurrency than, say, Bitcoin. And a company called Gemini, which is run by Cameron and Tyler Winklevoss. And the Winklevosses are well known because they are the ones who claim that they really invented Facebook and that Mark Zuckerberg stole the idea from them. Theirs was called ConnectU, but Zuckerberg at Harvard got in there and created Facebook. And there was a court case and they settled it all and all that. But that's why you know that name, Winklevoss.
We have to have a happy ending, John, so let's talk Netflix with generally good news.
Yes, I think so, really. The thing about Netflix is that it is a bellwether company of our times, okay? So as Netflix goes, so the Dow Jones tends to go. Fourth quarter earnings out last night. Revenue was exactly where Wall Street thought it would be, so no surprise there. The earnings per share, that's your profits, really. That was a big miss, actually. But the number of people that they added as subscribers in the fourth quarter was a huge, huge pleasant surprise to Wall Street. It was 7.66 million, and the Street had been expecting 4.5 million. That's incredible. Now, it turns out that the ad-supported stream, where you can pay $6.99 and get your Netflix with adverts, has turned out to be a big hit. The Flicks, as we call them here, is also making progress on password sharing, which is a problem for them. And Wall Street likes that very much, and so immediately after the news, Netflix shares jumped by about 8%. One slightly sour note, the co-founder, Reed Hastings, is stepping down as CEO. He'll be the chairman from here on in. But, I mean, Netflix, you know, boy, oh boy, what a range of programming they have. They have The Crown, they have Pinocchio, which has already won Best Motion Picture in the animated category at the Golden Globes. And, of course, the big one, All Quiet on the Western Front, which yesterday pretty much cleaned up the nominations at the UK equivalent of the Oscars, the BAFTAs.
John, have a lovely weekend. Good to see you. Our correspondent, John Terrett in New York.
You're watching CGTN. Still ahead. Where has all the snow gone? A winter sports resort with no white stuff. How Europe is adapting to warmer winters.
Ever wondered what's the difference between a bear and the bull market? Where are the cash cows? And who are the lame ducks? And what exactly are black swans? Grey rhinos? And unicorn companies? Make sense of it all with Global Business, only on CGTN.
There's a new agenda for a new world, accelerating change in almost every part of our lives. It's shifting the norms of how we work, travel, and connect. How we think, interact, and develop. It's a new reality, a new agenda with me, Juliet Mann.
Hello, welcome back to Global Business Europe. Quick reminder, CGTN is available to watch for free on all of the major digital platforms, on smart TV or online at Roku, Apple TV, Amazon Fire and Android TV, YouTube, Dailymotion, CGTN.com and the CGTN app, and in the UK on Freeview.
Can Germany be persuaded to green-light the delivery of tanks to Ukraine?
That's been the central question at the talks with Western defence leaders at a United States Air Force base in Germany. Berlin under great pressure to export its widely used Leopard tanks and allow other European countries to do the same.
The German government appeared to row back on earlier suggestions that it would only act if the United States also sent tanks to Kyiv, saying there was no such arrangement. Let's talk to our correspondent Trent Murray in Berlin. So Trent, we've heard from the German Defence Minister. What has he been saying?
Yeah, and we're actually also just hearing from the US Secretary of Defense right now, because those meetings are wrapping up as we speak, and so we're starting to get some information out. The key decision, it seems, is that those Leopard 2 tanks will not be going to Ukraine based on this meeting today. The German press conference that we heard earlier today effectively saw the Defence Minister water down suggestions that today could have been that big pivotal moment where the Allies agreed to send them. That is not going to happen, much to the annoyance, I would imagine, of the Ukrainians, given how publicly they have been calling for them. We've also heard, and this is important because Poland has really been sort of the ringleader in Europe, if you will, trying to rally support to get these Leopard 2 tanks into Ukraine. The Polish Defence Minister, I've just seen from Polish media, has said, leaving that meeting, that the Defence Ministers of 15 different countries met on the sidelines of today's conference, and we talked about the Leopards. Now, there were 54 countries at that meeting, Robin, so 15 of them have gone to have their own sort of meeting within a meeting. Clearly something is in the works, it would seem, on the question of Leopards. But once again, Berlin, on paper, should get a veto over all of this, and countries just can't re-export them because they're German manufactured. So let's have a listen to what the German Defence Minister had to say when he was asked about Germany's hesitation on sending these tanks.
We are not really hesitating. We are just very carefully in balance and all the pros and contras. We are not talking just about delivering anything to anybody. This is a new kind of measure we would choose, so we have to be carefully, because we have a duty to look carefully and intensively on what might be the consequences for anybody in that conflict.
So, Trent, it sounds like we'll hear more as this meeting comes to a close, but we've already had some strong words both from the United States and from President Zelensky.
Yeah, that's right. So we've heard the US once again speaking about some of the, I suppose, collective efforts which have been made. Lloyd Austin was discussing the delivery of armoured personnel carriers, air defence systems. We also understand more ammunition is being sent. He also commended the British government for its decision to send the Challenger tank to Ukraine. But we've also heard him say that this is a real pivotal moment in the sense that the Russians are rebuilding their forces in the east, and they do expect a pretty heavy offensive to come in the springtime from the Ukrainian side, that is. So let's have a listen to what Lloyd Austin had to say. He's just spoken to reporters as those Ramstein talks wrapped up.
We're going to continue to dig deep, and based upon the progress that we've made today, I'm confident that Ukraine's partners from around the globe are determined to meet this moment. The United States remains committed to leading in this coordinated effort. And this morning, I was pleased to announce another major round of U.S. security assistance designed to meet Ukraine's urgent battlefield requirements.
And that urgent battle requirement from the Ukrainians' perspective really is being stressed by President Zelensky himself. We know he joined this meeting via video link from Kyiv. We understand he in some ways called out Germany as well, saying Ukraine is waiting and relying on one European capital to help us, and it was quite obvious who he was referring to there. And again, he is just stressing that there have been more aerial attacks on his cities and towns, and that he needs more air defence, he needs more ammunition. But really, for him, it seems the question of these modern battle tanks is the real crucial one, because without them, it will make it a lot harder for the Ukrainian army to both defend against any Russian offensive and also to try and take back their territory. Let's have a listen to what President Zelensky told the defence ministers of those 54 nations gathered there.
Russia is concentrating its forces, last forces, trying to convince everyone that hatred can be stronger than the world. That is why you and I have to speed up. We have to do it. We must act as fast as a father or mother who saves their child. The Kremlin must lose.
And while those discussions are happening here in Germany, of course, in Ukraine, there is still very heavy fighting going on a number of areas on the front line, including Bakhmut. We often speak about Bakhmut. It's been a village which the Russians and Ukrainians have been fighting over for months now. The Ukrainians do still hold it, but a report out today by Der Spiegel, the German media outlet here, said that last week the German intelligence service gave a confidential briefing to German MPs about Bakhmut and said that every single day there the Ukrainians are losing, quote, triple-digit numbers of soldiers. In other words, hundreds of Ukrainian soldiers are being lost every day just in that one village alone. They went on to say that if Bakhmut does fall into Russian hands, then that will give the Russians a real leg up in the region and potentially allow them to open up some other fronts in the area. So a stark reminder, I think, of the very bloody battles that are still continuing there and the heavy losses which are being absorbed on both sides.
Trent, thank you very much. Our correspondent Trent Murray in Berlin.
Well, the Kremlin says sending Western tanks to Ukraine will not change the course of this conflict. Let's talk to our correspondent Stuart Smith in Moscow. Stuart, what's the reaction there to the Western defence talks taking place in Germany?
Well, the Russian president's spokesperson said he believes it's a delusion in the West that Ukraine could possibly win on the battlefield. He said that's a delusion Western countries would come to regret. Indeed, he said it was not fundamentally possible to change anything about the special military operation as it's known here with the introduction of heavy tanks, apart from, in Dmitry Peskov's words, to add problems for Ukraine and its people. He was talking to journalists earlier on Friday when he also addressed rumours that keep popping up about a further partial mobilisation, as Dmitry Peskov emphasises, in other words, sending more civilians to the front lines in Ukraine. 300,000 already there. He says, as the Russian president says, there will be no more sent to fight. He addressed the relationship between Russia and the United States, saying it's probably the worst it's ever been, with no change likely in the foreseeable future. And Russia's ambassador to the United States says he believes the US is waging a proxy war on what he called Russian territory, i.e. the annexed regions of Ukraine.
Stuart, thank you for that. Our correspondent Stuart Smith in Moscow.
The French President Emmanuel Macron is proposing a big increase in military spending over the next 6 years.
Between 2024 and 2030, the annual budget for the armed forces is set to rise by an average of 28.5%. Macron told the French armed forces they needed transformation to prepare them for the possibility of high-intensity conflicts after the Russian invasion of Ukraine.
You're watching CGTN. Still ahead, whatever happens to the sky at night, why seeing stars is becoming more of a rarity around the world.
Each day, there are millions of stories. Each one can open new perspectives, new possibilities. Wherever you look, we are there to see, discover, explore. We put the pieces together to find what really matters to you, all around the world, all around the clock. Our reporters are at home across the globe. From our headquarters in Beijing and production centers in Washington, Nairobi, and London, China Global Television Network. Stories from across the globe, reaching people across the globe. CGTN. See the difference. Facing the unknown is always difficult. In a world in turmoil, it's easy to lose orientation. But when the storms come, we have to see the possibilities. Reinvent. Find new opportunities. Discover a path forward. CGTN. See the difference.
What do we mean when we talk about the difference? The difference is in the detail, in the background,
defense ministers from
the wider angle and perspective of every story. Wherever the story may be. CGTN. See the difference.
Hello, welcome back to Global Business Europe with Jamie Owen and Robin Dwyer. Our top stories. Google's parent company Alphabet is to cut 12,000 jobs days after Microsoft wielded the axe with a similar number of layoffs. Our other headlines, Western military leaders failed to reach a decision on sending German tanks to Ukraine despite pleas from President Zelensky.
UK retail sales were down over the all-important Christmas period, as well as across the year. The volume of retail sales was down 1% in December on the previous month as consumers dealt with rising inflation. And sales were down a record 5.8% year-on-year. Looking at the year as a whole, retail sales were down 3% in 2022 compared to 2021, the biggest fall since records began in 1997. Well, let's talk now to Susanna Streeter, who's Senior Investments and Markets Analyst at Hargreaves Lansdown. Good to have you back on the programme, Susanna. So, I mean, these figures really are pretty gloomy and also worse than expected. Why was it such an unhappy Christmas?
I think really because of the cost of living headwinds that are whipping around the UK economy. What you saw was actually people brought forward their purchases, particularly festive treats like food items for Christmas, brought forward those purchases, and that had a dent on sales. And of course, what you're seeing is items in the shop much more expensive than they were this time last year. Grocery price inflation is running at 16.9%. So simply, people don't have enough money to spend on the other items, more discretionary items. Those companies that are offering value and are saying they're keeping their prices low, they seem to be doing okay, but overall there is a cautious sentiment among shoppers.
So how worried do you think retailers will be? Christmas, obviously, a peak time when people tend to spend quite a lot of money. If that's not a success, what are the longer-term consequences?
Yes, it is very disappointing. Christmas, of course, the festive period really is crucial for so many retailers. It is a bit of a mixed bag across the field. You saw the grocers still doing pretty well, I think because they are focusing so much on value, conscious of the discounters snapping at the heels and actually stealing market share, the likes of Aldi and Lidl. Longer term, looking ahead, the problem is grocery price inflation isn't expected to fall very quickly in the months to come. It should come down during the second half of 2023 before regaining normal levels of price inflation in 2024, but that's still some way to go. And in the meantime, we have fresh interest rate rises forecast. The Bank of England still expected to push up rates by 0.5% in February and perhaps again before May, around May time, because of the worry that inflation is still not quite in control, even though it does look like it's turned a corner. So because of all of this, consumers are still likely to be penny pinching in the weeks and months to come.
We did also see a turnaround in the kind of shopping people were doing in the UK, a shift away from online into shopping in physical stores. Do you think we'll see more of that?
Yes, now this has been a trend since the reopening after the pandemic, but it did accelerate again, partly, I think, because of the postal strikes with Royal Mail deliverers are really affected. People just didn't want to chance it to see whether or not a package would land at their door, so they turned back to pre-pandemic habits and went to the shopping centres and retail parks once more, which is why you saw online sales dip yet again. They are still higher than pre-pandemic times, so we haven't seen a complete reversal, but shopping is back as an experience, that's for sure, and we really did see that with footfall rising to above 2019 levels this Christmas. So it seems as though that pastime of going out for a spot of shopping is definitely back.
Susanna, good to talk to you. Thank you very much for joining us. Susanna Streeter from Hargreaves Lansdowne.
Rescue efforts are continuing in Tibet after an avalanche killed at least 20 people. Dozens of people were trapped in their cars on a highway in the Chinese autonomous region when snow blocked the mouth of a tunnel on Tuesday. Emergency teams have had to dig a 350-metre-long rescue tunnel to try to reach the stranded cars.
A fire has torn through a shantytown in South Korea's capital, burning down 60 homes and forcing around 500 people to flee. No casualties have been reported. The blaze is the latest to hit the area where makeshift homes are built from cardboard and wood. It's one of the last remaining slums in Asia's fourth largest economy.
Tributes have been paid to folk rock star David Crosby, who's died at the age of 81. He was a founding member of both the Byrds and Crosby, Stills and Nash in the 1960s, helping to pioneer a distinctive sound of close vocal harmonies and jangly guitars. His former bandmate, Stephen Stills, said Crosby's harmonic sensibilities were nothing short of genius.
Brazil has begun a crackdown on deforestation in a bid to protect the Amazon. The country's Environment Agency has carried out a series of raids to stop people turning forests into farmland. The new president, Lula da Silva, has pledged to end the destruction that took place under his predecessor, Jair Bolsonaro.
Australian park rangers have stumbled upon a record-breaking giant toad deep in the rainforest. Dubbed Toadzilla, the cane toad weighs 2.7 kilograms, making it the heaviest on record. Cane toads are an invasive species that pose a threat to Australia's ecosystem. The toad is being donated to Queensland's Museum for research.
Snow has been in short supply on the slopes of Europe this winter.
Slovenia is one of the many countries whose tourist sectors have been badly affected by warmer temperatures coupled with soaring energy costs.
Our correspondent Alyosha Milenkovic reports.
It is early January and there is no snow in the Alpine region of Slovenia close to the Italian border. That's unusual for this time of year and bad news for the skiing industry. Some resorts wanted to make up for the shortfall by making their own snow, but the weather proved too warm even for that.
When the temperatures are high, our snowmaking machines don't work. The temperature has to be at least 0 degrees Celsius for them to operate.
With full sun and temperatures between 5 and 10 degrees in Kranjska Gora, that was out of the question. People ventured out in light clothing, no snow on the streets. Ski slopes were still relying on snow from a few weeks ago. From where I am standing, everything appears to be normal with the ski season in Kranjska Gora, Slovenia's most important ski resort. But what you see behind me does not represent the true scale of the problems. Besides the lack of snow, rapidly rising electrical costs deeply worry entrepreneurs here. Everything in their industry runs on electricity. The snow cannons, the ski lifts, everything.
The sevenfold increase in the price of electricity isn't something you can just add to the price of a ski pass. At the moment, it costs €39, but with that on top, it would be €70 for a daily pass.
Besides the warm weather, those high prices are another reason most of these cable cars are empty, and there are no queues at the Kanin ski lifts. The Slovenian government imposed a price cap on electrical energy prices for ski lift operators, but it will run only until June. And also hoteliers, to survive, they say they had to adjust their operations.
We made our organization a bit thinner. Also, we improved the efficiency of our processes, and due to this internal, let's say, reserves, we are able to not increase the prices so much as a consequence of higher energy prices.
Yet it seems that regardless of their efforts, the lack of snow and higher prices are prompting many tourists to skip this year's season. Aljoša Milenković, CGTN, Kranjska Gora in Slovenia.
You're watching CGTN, still ahead. Not so much a martial art, more a way of life. Shaolin practitioners get in shape for the new year in Europe.
Events have consequences. Words create impact.
Unprecedented scenes that we saw.
The clean-up operation is now well and truly underway.
Parts of southern Europe remain in a state of emergency.
Context gives meaning. People make history.
Far more than 1,000 people have come here today.
But authorities are still on high alert.
So now we've actually become the border on this road.
A complex world demands a comprehensive view.
But with the cleanup efforts more or less under control,
the economic impact is bound to ripple across the country.
There's plastic pollution everywhere.
Because the world today matters for your world tomorrow.
This is the living area of the crew.
The focus is firmly on future technologies.
Well, this is something completely different.
The world today, every day on CGTN.
Hello, welcome back to Global Business Europe. Over the last 2 decades, social media has arguably become the most influential and fast-evolving invention in human history.
20 years ago, Facebook did not exist. Now it's essential for billions of users. But 2022 was a year of turmoil for the industry. Our correspondent Peter Oliver reports from Davos on what's next for social media.
It's credited with winning elections, starting revolutions and creating countless trends and celebrities. Social media users have grown exponentially over the past 2 decades. Take early market leader Facebook, which went from 1 million users in 2004 to just shy of 3 billion last year. But 2022 saw huge upheaval in social media giants, including Twitter, which got a new owner in Elon Musk, as well as Facebook and Instagram's Meta and Google's YouTube. Tens of thousands of workers lost their jobs at the major platforms as revenue growth turned negative for the first time. The challenges are set to continue into the future as firms look to keep users engaged in an already saturated market and calls for more regulation on social media grow. Then, at the same time, there's the rise of artificial intelligence and questions over the future of this technology. The market size of global AI in social media was valued at around $750 million in 2020, with analysts predicting it will surpass $6 billion by 2028.
AI is the future, and I don't care what anybody says, it's going to be. Yeah, AI is just really removing any need for humans. It's totally artificial intelligence. They are doing what a human could do, which is mad. It's crazy, isn't it?
But what does the future of social media look like? Facebook's owner Meta has heavily invested in the metaverse. Upcoming app Be Real takes the opposite view, encouraging a more genuine and spontaneous sharing. China's WeChat, meanwhile, offers a wide toolkit intended to be useful in its users' lives.
I think the biggest challenge is this challenge of how to truly do a better job of connecting us and making humanity realize its full potential rather than amplifying anger, division, fake news, things like that. My hope is that social media does a better job of connecting us and less of a job of dividing us, and that it actually helps strengthen democracy rather than weakening democracy.
While there's no one who can predict what the future may hold for social media, its survival will depend on continued popularity and usefulness, and whether it can turn clicks and swipes into profit. Peter Oliver, CGTN, in Davos, Switzerland.
Humanity is losing sight of the stars. That's the conclusion of new research on the impact of light pollution. The Globe at Night study was the result of 12 years of research by amateur astronomers and citizen scientists. It concluded that our view of the stars is disappearing. Well, Christopher Keiber is the lead author of this study and a scientist at the German Research Centre for Geosciences. Christopher, welcome. I thought we had an energy crisis in the world. Why aren't we turning off all the lights?
That's a really excellent question. I mean, well, not that we shouldn't turn off all the lights. We definitely need some of them. But you had a program on Slovenia just a moment ago. Slovenia has lit highways and Germany does not. So how is it that highways must be lit in Slovenia but not in Germany? It's a very interesting question.
I guess part of the story is our inability to understand the extent of this. I mean, how do you measure light pollution? We understand how you measure ordinary pollution from cars and vehicles and chimneys and factories. How do you measure light pollution around the world?
Well, we do have some satellites that have a little bit of sensitivity to the cities on Earth, but they also have a number of problems associated with them. So what we did in this project is people looked at the stars and they looked at a set of star maps and told us which one looks the closest to what they see. So in Orion, do they see just the 3 belt stars? Or do they see lots and lots of stars? And we use that to track how many stars people can see is changing. What we found is that year after year, people are reporting that they're seeing fewer stars.
Who are the worst offenders? Which parts of the world have the worst light pollution problems?
Pretty well anywhere that's wealthy has a lot of issues. It tends to grow with population. Within Europe, what you see is, oddly enough, as I mentioned, Germany is sort of the very conservative country. When you look at other places like Spain, Portugal, they tend to be much, much brighter than Germany. And the United States, for example, is about 4 times brighter per capita than Germany is. So wherever you have a lot of people and a lot of wealth, there tends to be a lot of light.
And ultimately, presumably, we as consumers are picking up the bill for this electricity, whether it's through council tax or municipal taxes. We're paying for it.
And as customers as well, for when the advertising lighting is up, the company has to pay for that, and of course it gets passed on to the customers.
There'll be a lot of people watching who might suggest to you that perhaps crime will rise if you switch off the lights at night. I mean, that's a thing, isn't it?
Well, I do want to mention that the idea is not to switch off lights, but to better match things to the environment. So, for example, if you have a sign that's way too bright, probably many viewers have seen this, it kind of blinds you and it makes everything else look dark. So by getting signs to simply be less bright and match better the radiance of the street, you can reduce the light pollution a lot, but actually make the visibility better. The other issue is that light by itself is not going to really deter crime. We tend to believe that because we're so fearful at night, but a lot of crime takes place at daytime, of course. And so it's not as if light is a magical ingredient that solves crime.
I guess it's easy to rage at city authorities and councils and office blocks and the rest of it, but I want to ask you what we can do as individuals to help with this.
Well, the problem of sky brightness is made up of decisions made by millions of individual people. These are homeowners who put lights up on the side of their house. do you choose to light just the staircase and your path, or do you choose a light that shines in all directions, including into your neighbor's backyard? Business owners have the decision to make about whether they turn the lights off late at night or they leave them running all night long. The last thing that all of us can do is when the sun goes down, close the blinds in your house, and that removes one source of light that's going out into the environment.
And I guess if they could talk, the natural world, bird life in cities, animal life, would also make a plea to do something about this, because it confuses the natural world, doesn't it?
Absolutely. We need to remember that for the hundreds of millions of years when life evolved, there was this very constant signal, day and night, and the short nights and long nights in the different season. And by adding all of this light, we have made this signal much more difficult to detect, and that causes a lot of problems for some animals. In addition, animals like birds and insects often fly toward light with deadly consequences.
Christopher, good luck with your work, and thank you so much for coming on the programme. Christopher Kyber talking to us there from Germany.
Thank you.
Chinese New Year is about to break around the world and will be marked in every corner of the earth with festivals, family and food, not to mention Chinese culture and traditions.
Most people have heard of Kung Fu, of course, but the martial art is just one aspect of the Chinese philosophy Shaolin, and students of the practice are getting ready to show off their skills for Chinese New Year. From Madrid, our correspondent Ken Brown reports.
An old Chinese proverb says, "A sound mind lives inside a sound body." Shaolin philosophy promotes physical strength and mental well-being through practices globally known as Zen, Qigong and of course Kung Fu. Master Bruno Tombolato may have been born in Argentina, but he has dedicated more than 20 years to martial arts.
I've been in love with Chinese culture for a long time. Shaolin isn't just Kung Fu. Within it is all Chinese culture. It leads you to a path of self-discovery where you can really find out who you are and be at peace with yourself and everything around you.
The center has trained hundreds of people in martial arts, Chinese philosophy and more. Right now, they're training to put on a show for the 2023 Spring Festival, with a Shaolin Kung Fu demonstration the main attraction. This is a scene being repeated across Europe, with around 2.5 million Chinese people living on the continent. Over the next few weeks, expect to see vibrant theatre and musical performances, dragon dances, food stalls and of course the unique tea ceremony. Back in Madrid, Bruno's wife Melissa Lin is also a director at the centre, where she displays her expertise in Chinese ceremonies.
A
tea ceremony is an ancient Chinese art form. It isn't just about drinking tea. It's a way of life, a moment just for you. It's a taste of ancient Chinese wisdom, a cultural exchange between Chinese and Spanish people, so we can understand each other better.
De antigua China. Entonces, la verdad que eso, aunque nos ayuda.
The center has grown in stature over the past few years, and in November was visited by Shaolin monks from China who gave guest classes here in the Spanish capital. Now, with excitement building for the Lunar New Year celebrations, Chinese cultural beacons like this one are busier than ever. Ken Brown, CGTN, Madrid.
China's on the move for the Spring Festival holiday.
Airports and railways have been crammed with passengers. It's not just hotels enjoying bumper bookings. From the first day of 2023, tourists from across the country have been booking home rentals.
Our correspondent Hu Jing reports.
Maybe only fantasy lands can compare with the verdant beauty of Guilin. It comes as no surprise that scores of people are flocking to Guilin after the COVID-19 restrictions were optimized in early December. Bamboo rafting is one of the most popular activities in Guilin's Yulong River, which means a river to meet dragons. Now, with the tides of visitors coming back, the waiting lines at the wharves are indeed like long dragons.
After comparing the data for the past 3 years, we found that the overall impact was not that evident. 2019 was the year when we saw record tourist numbers, with nearly 1.76 million tourists participating in bamboo rafting. The number was 1.45 million in 2021. We were surprised to find that tourist numbers increased 5-fold in January over the same period in 2019, while turnover rose 7-fold.
According to Guangxi's winter tour policy, tourists coming to our scenic spot can enjoy half-price discount tickets from January to the end of February. The water is like a green belt and the mountain a jade hair comb. And it is a real scenic spot as represented on the backside of a 20 yuan bill. The river stretches from Guilin to Yangshuo County, and the water converging phenomenon symbolizes a good blessing that there are treasures pouring in from all directions.
Our hotel has been fully booked since the first day of 2023, and our dinner tables on Spring Festival Eve have been fully reserved as well.
Yangshuo County has welcomed around 36,000 visitors since the New Year's Day. With the Spring Festival approaching, 70% of the middle and high-end homestays have been fully booked. Both our beautiful scenery and lovely people are ready to welcome friends coming for their vacations.
Outside the scenic areas, various festive activities are also imparting a festive spirit to the Chinese New Year, such as shopping from vendors in traditional Hanfu attire, writing Spring Festival couplets, preparing local snacks, and gathering for a training tea boiling session. Everywhere, people are returning to their hometowns, while visitors are looking to enjoy their vacations in beautiful surroundings to welcome the Year of the Rabbit. Hou Jing, CGTN in Guilin.
Now, what better way to end the show than with a nice cup of tea and some music?
Irish cellist and TikToker Patrick Dexter has sent us this special Chinese New Year greeting.
There's nothing I love more than first thing in the morning coming outside my home and having a lovely warm cup of tea. It warms up the hands, it warms up the heart, and gives me great spirit to play music like I love doing outside here in the west coast of Ireland. 新年快乐!
Talented musician. The headlines again. The head of the World Trade Organization welcomes China's opening up after coronavirus, saying it will boost the global economy.
Google's parent company Alphabet is to cut 12,000 jobs days after Microsoft wielded the axe with a similar number of layoffs.
And Western military leaders failed to reach a decision on sending German tanks to Ukraine despite pleas from President Zelensky.
And that's it for Global Business Europe. Thanks for watching.
More on all of our stories at europe.cgtn.com, and do follow CGTN Europe on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram.
We're on smart TV apps, Roku, Apple TV, Amazon Fire and Android TV, YouTube, Dailymotion, CGTN.com and the CGTN app, and in the UK on Freeview.
Coming up next on CGTN, it's Africa Live. We'll see you again on Monday, same time, same place. From all of the team in London, it's goodbye.
Goodbye.